From the Weston Peachtree Plaza, this is Tim Priester with Tim O'Malley from Irish Illustrated, and this is Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis brought to you by the RVMH Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. Well, the hay is in the barn, as they say, for Notre Dame and Ohio State, the national championship game. And Tim, what struck me as we proceeded in the 30-minute interviews with Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman was that there really are a lot of similarities between these two programs. Now, Ohio State is more accomplished on the national stage, but of course we know the connection between Marcus Freeman and Ohio State. And the more you talk to these two coaches, talking about culture and how they build teams and their expectations of championships, Notre Dame is definitely headed in the same direction that Ohio State has been.
And equally accomplished this season, which I think is important because Marcus Freeman notes this has nothing to do with anything in the past. His alma mater, the past two games, it is about this opportunity this season. And I felt the same way. I mean, you went through and watched a lot of the Ohio State players talk. It's a mature group. Notre Dame has always been a mature group under Marcus Freeman and even under Brian Kelly as well. There's more similarities than differences, including how they built the teams through the transfer portal, Ohio State having 7 key additions, Notre Dame having 8 or 9. And what matters is, and Ryan Day said it, you've heard Marcus Freeman say it, what matters is who we brought in fit in, and they had to find a way to fit into our culture, not the other way around. You don't show up to Ohio State or Notre Dame and have a starting spot. You had to earn it. And the other thing that was nice today was there was the lack of pontification regarding hairline, age, and forced conference affiliation by Coach Day. I thought that was fun for a coach's press conference.
That was good. You know, a lot of the words that we heard during this press conference that are normally affiliated with Notre Dame, of course, faith, culture, gratitude, valuing our players,
and letting them feel value as well.
Exactly, and that was a lot of the conversation. And as you said, Tim, both teams built similarly, and I want to bring out this point, and you have brought it out before, that Ohio State, they spent $20 million on their team. Well, Notre Dame spent a little bit less than that, but both Ryan Day and Marcus Freeman talk about being committed to high school recruiting, retaining those players, right. And that's actually where most of the money has been spent for both teams.
Yeah, it goes in. That's because they have good players, and that's how you retain players. That's how you retain the likes of Joe Alt and Benjamin Morrison and now Jeremiah Love. And those, of course, acquisitions are huge. No one's going to pretend that Riley Leonard wasn't a massive acquisition for this team or necessary. But it's you mentioned the hay is in the barn. I think it's interesting. Marcus Freeman's like, we're going to use every minute, all 48 hours or whatever we have left. Well,
for us,
it's less than
them.
that. Yeah, the hay's in the barn for us, not them, because they're always still a moment that you can find something on film. And that question was actually asked of both Freeman and Day, how much time do your players spend on film? And I thought both answers were unique. Look, it's like whatever you can find, whether it's 5, 10, 20, 30, or 50 hours a week, looking at film as a player, it's up to you, but you can always find an edge. Because physically, you can't overtax yourself preparing. Right. Mentally, you can keep going.
Yeah, Ryan Day said if you watch that one extra hour of film, maybe that gives you, that advantage on that one play, and you understand that. Marcus Freeman reiterated that as well. 16-game season.
Yeah. First two teams to ever play 16 games will be tomorrow night.
Right, and I mean, you had to prepare for that. Again, both coaches say you have to prepare for that in the preseason. You have to anticipate what it's going to be like having to play 4 extra games. Notre Dame, knowing that they are always going to, at least under the current format, will always have to play 4 games. So he has a lot of faith in Orlando. His name didn't come up here specifically, but it has certainly during our time here in Atlanta. And it's really, you don't just suddenly, hey, we've got 4 games to play. Now we got to plan for it. It's something that has been on their radar from the very beginning of the season.
Yeah, similar approach, but I thought Day's was a unique answer when he said we prepared for 16 games and started going backwards from 16. Yeah. And Coach Freeman mentioned, hey, we knew we had an opportunity coming up if we played as well as we could for the playoffs. We also knew we had a break. We had to use week 13 or after 12 games as our time to recover. That was built in, and then we had a 4-game plan. Well, they reached it. That's why Freeman kind of laughed today when he said, we have one last, and he smiled, because I think everybody's glad it's their last opportunity, actually one last opportunity to prove ourselves. So both teams were kind of open, talking about what their goal was to play 16 games. Ryan Day even mentioned, our guys have been planning on coming, their Georgia guys have been planning on coming back to Atlanta since he told them where the national championship game was. They could talk about that now. As Day said, these stories don't get told unless you go into this game and win this game.
Yeah, of course, a lot of overlap between Ohio State and Notre Dame coaching staff. James Laurinaitis, former Ohio State player, was at Notre Dame, now at Ohio State. Al Washington, Notre Dame's Notre Dame's defensive line coach, was Ryan Day's running backs coach first, which is a little bit hard to believe. He said, Ryan Day said that Al Washington didn't know anything about running backs, so he said, okay, well, first priority, protect the football. Second priority, protect the quarterback. And they went from there, and lo and behold, that year, the first year that Al Washington was the running backs coach,
He had a Doak
Walker Award winner at running back. I got to believe that had a lot to do with the running back himself. But,
Generally does.
But Al Washington obviously was a quick study.
Yeah, so Dave mentioned he was a GA at Boston College at the time, and he's talking to Al Washington and mentioned, like, they're at Dunkin' Donuts, and they offered him the job, and Al's like, I don't know anything about running backs. Well, protect the ball, go from there. They went from there, but there's a lot of respect between the two programs because of the crossover. I mean, as Marcus Freeman said with Laurinaitis, he was in each other's wedding, or he was in Marcus Freeman's wedding. Friendship is friendship. It crosses over. There's been a lot of crossover between these teams because this is the third time playing. I know Coach Freeman doesn't want to talk about this being the third time playing, and Ryan Day should be careful not to talk about that. There's just a lot of crossover between these programs right now. There's a new modern rivalry that has creeped up between the two teams.
And I've always felt like it was a rivalry. It was a rivalry in which the two teams didn't play against each other very much because, I mean, two of the all-time winningest programs, Midwest located, competing for the same players on the recruiting trail many times, maybe not quite as much as with Michigan, but certainly many times. Finally, Tim, gratitude was a word that Marcus Freeman used. Talked about the journey, enjoying the opportunity. They were both asked about pregame speeches. I found it was kind of funny because Marcus Freeman was like, well, people on the outside think that some pregame words are going to alter the outcome of the game. Well, Marcus Freeman puts a lot into his pregame speeches, so he has value in that. But I understand what he's saying because ultimately it comes down to who prepares the best and who's ready to play at a high level when the game starts.
I think he kind of meant there's got to be a consistent message. It's not like you could go pregame and say, all right, you've prepared this way for a week. Now here's a new thing you have to worry about. So he called it crazy that a pregame speech could do anything, but he said, hey, it's the national championship game. There's going to be more passion that naturally comes out in a pregame speech. And for people wondering, there was no discussion. And this is really how it's supposed to be in these final press conferences because you can't possibly get the truth anyway. There's no discussion about health from either team. That's just not what this is for. If you're looking for an update on Jeremiah Love's purported percentage of being ready, or Rocco Spindler or Howard Cross or anybody from the Ohio State side.
We're getting ready for a live stream. We're trying to find some place here in the Peachtree Plaza to where we can pull this off without too many interruptions. But we're planning an 11 a.m. Eastern time live stream. Until then, right? Tim Priester, Tim O'Malley. We expect John Bryce to be joining us. This has been Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RVMH Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana.